Welcome to the 46th episode of Stories of Service, Ordinary People Who Do Extraordinary Work. And I'm the host of Stories of Service, Teresa Carpenter. And as you can see over here, right here to my left, I have Lesley Lykins, not through a computer screen, but here in person.
Yay!
Yay! So really excited. I think this is going to be a fantastic conversation. I was so excited about it. We decided to start just a tad early because we just thought we would be different and start a little early.
Unpredictable.
Yes, be unpredictable, be wild and mysterious. So I'm going to read you guys a little bit about Lesley, and then we're just going to get right into a few questions. Feel free to chime in the comments section wherever you might be joining us, be that on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm introducing you to my dear friend, Lesley Lykins, CCSD. She inspired me to start my podcast, and she's done it all in the military, and her stories and her struggles, they will inspire you. She was raised on a farm in Ohio. She grew up learning how to milk goats. She accepted a Naval Reserve Officer Training Corps scholarship from Boston University as a method of escaping Ohio. After graduating with a degree in general management, she started her career driving warships for the Navy. After 3 years in the Navy's surface warfare community, she was selected as one of the Navy's 200 public affairs officers. She has collaborated and led major Navy outreach opportunities, including New York City Fleet Week. She ended her active duty career in the Navy, standing up the Navy's social media program. And as a civilian, she was blessed to be introduced to the Customer Experience Professionals Association, serving as the association's executive director and marketing director. As part of her Navy Reserve obligations, she deployed to Afghanistan in 2018. She launched her podcast, When Sacrifice Calls, on the 1-year anniversary of her homecoming. The show features the stories of military reservists and National Guardsmen. She served as the director of PR and communications at South Bay Hospital in Sun City, Florida, as the hospital responded to COVID-19. In 2021, she completed a Navy Reserve Corps at U.S. Central Command and reported to the Navy Office of Information for Commander 6th Fleet as the unit's executive officer. Then on the home front, she spends her time fundraising for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, participating as a leader in her church, and as a wife and mother of 4 children. In May, she and her family moved right here to Stuttgart, Germany. She accepted a consulting role with Booz Allen Hamilton. Hello and welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me on the show.
I am excited to talk to you today. So first off, I'm going to start with, you come from Ohio, just like I do. You were raised on this farm, and what was it about where you were from that inspired you to join the military?
So it's funny because you think of the Navy, you don't think of Ohio. There is not a lot of ocean around Ohio.
Oh, no. In Columbus, it wasn't like there was this major rush of people saying, I'm going to join the Navy.
So my dad had been in the Navy, but he left active duty. He left the reserves when I was born, and I was born in San Diego. And so we left San Diego and we moved to Ohio when I was about 5 years old. And from the minute we arrived in Ohio, I told my parents I would move back to California as soon as possible. My whole goal for my childhood was to get back to California. They were training for living in San Diego.
Right.
And so my dad raised us with a lot of the Navy culture as part of growing up. So he would wake us up, I think, on Sunday mornings for church saying, "Holy reveille, all your Tito's." And he would refer to soda and hand you a G-Dunk, and just he would reminisce fondly for his time in the Navy, and I didn't really think much of it. And then in high school, we had a woman, a midshipman, who was from University in Ohio, come back to her alma mater, my high school, and speak to the classes about the ROTC program. And I had never heard of this. I had never even considered the military. I mean, I knew what it was because of my dad, but I had never thought about it myself. And so she came back and she told us about the scholarship program, and that you could get this 4-year scholarship and then serve in the military for 4 years, and it seemed like a really wonderful deal.
Absolutely.
And I came home and I said to my dad, this was in the late 90s, and I said to my dad, "Hey, what do you think about me doing this ROTC thing?" And he's like, he was all for it. And I'm the first of 4 children, so there was a few of us coming up behind me. And I just don't know if I can be in the military because I don't know that I would feel comfortable firing a gun. And my dad said, "Oh, Lesley, this is the 90s. You'll be on a warship. You'll never see a gun. You'll never touch a gun. Like, we're in peace. You're on a ship." Like, and I was like, "Oh, okay, all right." And so
what did he do in the Navy?
He had been a communications officer
Okay. All right.
during Vietnam, and they had been engaged. But I mean, we were in late 90s.
It just wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't
before
what we were
9/11,
thinking about.
and people weren't thinking that way.
No.
And it's the Navy that like you're on a ship, right?
Mhm.
So later in my career, that ended up completely being the opposite way.
Right,
And
right.
I will not let him live that down. And
Yes.
I do. And I loved it. That program at Boston University really centered.
Mhm.
They really keep you. What's the word? Like they don't let you fall off the deep end in college.
Nice.
So it's good. And some really amazing friends for that.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's one of those things too where I think if you go through the ROTC or you go through the shipment program, you start to build that community of Navy people even before you're in the fleet. And so you sort of get that family going and those networks going. And so I think that probably served you well to have that start. I would think.
Very strong friendship. I mean, it's like even before you start school, your freshman year at the university, you go through a 1 week indoctrination program, which is like your mini boot camp.
Right, right.
And you just build this amazing bond. You start your freshman year off with already these like
Amazing
brothers and
people.
sisters that you can count on.
That's so cool.
Really cool.
So you go through college and they say, "Oh, what do you want to do as an officer?" And you say, "I want to be a."
Ship driver. A worship driver. I didn't want to fly. I knew that. I was not an aviator. Although aviation runs in my family, my grandfather did it. My dad was a pilot. My brother ended up going into Rocky and then helicopters in the Navy, but I was not in aviation, so surface warfare for me.
Okay.
Submarines aren't yet an option.
And so you get to your first ship, and that was.
So my best friend and I, and this is 2001. It was the summer of 2001, so before 9/11. You have to select your ship, so there's a big deal as a midshipman to select your ship. And I remember my friend and I, we were scrolling through websites, and this was really early on. Like websites were not what websites. And we were scrolling through websites trying to see if the destroyers that we were looking at had women on board them yet, because it was the beginning of integration on board the cruisers and destroyers. And so we're looking at the pictures. And so this particular ship in San Diego, I couldn't tell. Like it was just pictures of the ship, not the crew.
Right.
So like, all right. And so she picks it, and I like a number behind her. So I pick it. So at least we know.
At least you have two people that can be together and be friends and
so
hang out.
So we drove
learn
across
from one
the
another.
country together, and we're like driving across
Oh.
San Diego, and we're so excited. And you record aboard a ship, you have to, of course, dress in your whites, and you walk up the ship, and it was a Friday afternoon. We were so nervous. It's Friday afternoon in San Diego. Like the piers are totally empty. And we come aboard and salute the ensign, and we salute the officer. It's this crusty old first class petty officer. Like, I'll never forget him. And he's standing there on the podium reading a romance novel.
Oh my God!
And I say, I'm Ensign. This is Ensign Carmen Stan. We're aboard. And the guy does not even look up from his book. He just says, "He got the wrong ship. We don't have girls here." All of nerves just drained out of me, and I said, "You do now." The guy like puts his book down, and he looks up, and he has the biggest eyes. And so so we were like the first two women to report aboard. They were at all.
So how did they know where you could sleep? How did they accommodate you?
So
the first part.
So they took us to the wardroom, and it was everybody was already off the ship by then. And just the CDO comes out, and it's this lieutenant, and he obviously had been happy. He was like rubbing his eyes. And we go in the wardroom, and he starts to pull the chair out from my bed, and it's like he realizes what he's doing, and he pushes the chair back in.
Oh my
So
God!
awkward.
Wow.
And so we left there like back on Monday, and we did back on Monday to lieutenants cleaning out their stateroom. And I mean, it was.
Nope, and they have to just make room, and that's what it takes. I mean, that's what it takes to ensure that we have the same opportunities as men to serve our country and to be a part of the team. So that's pretty groundbreaking. I didn't know you were part of the first two females that were ever on that ship.
And then about, I don't know, maybe 12 years ago, I was in a and I had to go on board BBC to do hometown news stories, I think. And I remember thinking, like, they were so proud because the triad was all women, and they had 50% of their crew was women. And I was like, how amazing is it? That I
Wow.
could start off in the Navy and be one of 2 women on board a destroyer, and then just 12 years later, we integrated to that level. And it was just
That gives me goosebumps. That's
Yeah.
like really crazy. And
Yeah.
it's a testament to show like it can be done. And yes, it's hard. Change is always hard, but it's the right thing to do to give all Americans an equal opportunity and an equal chance to be a part of our Navy fighting team. So I think it's amazing that you got to be a part of that. So that was your first ship, and then I'm sure that's also where you got your surface warfare
I
pin.
did, yeah. So I actually stayed on board with that crew. We did this cruise swap, and so we flew out as a crew to Australia. So I was on like an extended 3 years tour. Got my surface warfare pin, then did a couple deployments,
Mm-hmm.
and then my commanding officer is the one who recommended that I look at the public affairs community.
Oh, really? You were, yeah, you
This just what happened in the surface warfare community.
No, they typically do not want
It is
anyone
not a good sign when your
to
captain is
change.
like, you should go to a different
Right. It's like, oh, is there something wrong with the way I'm fighting ship?
I think it was the way discipline division.
Yeah.
Or not discipline.
Or maybe he just saw that you were a good storyteller and a good communicator.
I took it upon myself. There was letters and letters, hundreds of letters in a ship. From people who had served on board the ship. There was people passion them for ball cap. And so for that first summer, I had all this time on my hands because we had to really transition the roles. And so I just responded to every letter.
And then, sadly, like sometimes these are just things that sort of, drop off and we don't pay attention to them as much as we should. And the fact that you took the time to.
I think he just thought that I was passionate about that.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful because I'm sure I would not have stayed maybe as long as I did stay if I didn't surface warfare.
I feel the same way.
So, yeah, I'm glad that I've been able to give this something that I enjoy.
Right. And to find your calling in the military is a pretty sweet feeling. So I get it. So he recommends you for public affairs and you lack transfer, right? Yeah. And you go into public affairs and tell us a little bit about your first job as a storyteller and a communicator for the Navy.
Oh man, so ironically, I then left San Diego to the East Coast. I was trying to get to California. I got to California, and then I was back to Florida. So I started at NPACE, or it was Payson at the time. And I started working for command. We're just staying up with about UC.
Okay. Naval Expeditionary
Combat Command. So working with the DoD,
explosive ordnance disposal.
Yep. And it was a community that wasn't used to public affairs.
Oh, I bet.
And they not have public affairs officers. They weren't. And so it was a really fascinating opportunity to start to build, to learn to gain somebody's trust, gain a command's trust. And help take small steps to help them feel comfortable telling their story. And it was really fascinating. And so I got into that role. We started telling that story, and then I got pulled to go on an missionary strike group deployment.
So tell me a little bit about what you did to build that trust with people that weren't accustomed to talking about what they do. Like people who, because there's a lot of that in our field where we have to sometimes force people to communicate and to tell their story and to broadcast their activities. What were some of the ways that you built that trust early
on? I think that you need to demonstrate that you are engaged and you're part of the team before you try to tell the team's story, right? So if you come in and you're really pushing to tell the story, but you haven't demonstrated that you're there to support them in their roles, and you haven't built that relationship up, and it's really hard to expect somebody to go out on a limb for you in a very public way that you require. And so I think you just have to go slow.
Right.
Don't push. Don't push hard. Go slow.
Find little wins.
Where are people comfortable? Take that opportunity. That goes. I learned that lesson early in my career, but it applies everywhere, right?
It sure does.
So it doesn't just apply to public affairs. It's many things. You just take the opportunities where they're presented to you when they're small, and eventually they become larger.
Right. Yeah, it really is like that because a lot of times you get a lot of pushback when you try to do too much at once. And I had to learn that lesson the hard way when I was on my carrier course. You have to very, very slowly and very incrementally build those that trust first, like you said, by even doing things that sometimes aren't even typically associated with public affairs, so that people will see and understand that yeah, you're here to support the team and you're here to help them out. And gradually, as they learn to trust you and trust you with this, because I think that's also a big part of it is that people have to feel safe sharing, even if it's just day-to-day activities. They have to feel safe doing that, and they have to know that it's for a purpose and that there's an outcome. Would you
Right.
say that?
Right. Absolutely. I remember one time we were off the coast of Somalia, and there had just been this pirate incident where we fired upon these pirates. We brought them on board the amphibious. They were being treated, and it was a huge international story. We were getting all of these requests for media interviews, and the captain of the warships amphib came up to me and said in front of the entire strike group command, "I don't want to be interviewed. I don't want our ship to be interviewed. Like I don't want anybody on the ship to be interviewed." I was like, "Okay, sir, understand." I worked on doing interviews for the cruiser and the destroyer that was involved, and about 4 days later, he comes back and he's like, "You can have an interview." He saw the results, right? And so it just took an opportunity for them to feel comfortable with what was going to happen, how it was going to play out, and what kind of skills that I had to ensure that it wasn't going to blow up
And go off the rails
Yeah.
and you have a bad
You just have to go
outcome.
slow.
Yeah, you do. You really do. So you did that. You did that public affairs work for a while, and then you transitioned. This isn't when you go to CHINFO, is it? I think there was another command in between there, right?
I went to New York.
Yep.
Nav Info East.
Okay, so you go to Nav Info East, and Nav Info East is the ones that do our book deals,
Yep.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
How was that tour?
So I think the biggest piece of that tour was the way that the people of New York City welcomed the military.
Interesting.
So I mean, they just bend over backwards to support our military. And I'm going to try to speak up louder.
Oh, gosh.
We'll see if it works.
Yes, thank you, Brian.
So New York City demonstrated to me just the amount of passion that they had for the services and how we could work with that community to tell the military story. New York Fleet Week is a huge piece of that. So a lot of the work of the year would go into just maintaining those amazing relationships that we had with New Yorkers and preparation. Phenomenal. It was great. It was a great tour.
Awesome. Yeah. That's a special tour because it's not really New York's not really associated with the Navy. Much like our Hollywood tour is sort of the same way. And so to be able to bring the military to another industry, I think is always very important. And then the next tour was
then I went to CHINFO.
Yes.
So I was actually going to leave after duty. I just had my first
Oh, good. Thanks, Brian. You said that's better.
Just had my first child. I was going to leave after duty, and then last minute got pulled back into CHINFO to do this special role in social media. And this was 2008. So it was very relatively new. And I had been lucky in that New York role to get to meet a few marketing and communicating professionals that were using social media at the time. So that helped me help the Navy.
Right.
Really fascinating.
And what's so interesting about that too is like you got to CHINFO at a time when like social media was not yet fully incorporated or accepted, and now it's just such a part of a public affairs officer's life. But back when you were there, CHINFO didn't even have a Facebook page.
No,
did they?
the Navy did not have a Facebook page.
Navy, yeah.
The Navy didn't have a Facebook page, and we were creating content. It wasn't social media content. So it was still very traditional.
Like put a news release,
releases,
just press some imagery.
photos,
Yes. Right.
So it was really a matter of getting people to think in a totally different way. I think one of my favorite stories from this period is when I was so we were still trying to convince the CNO that we needed a Facebook page. I mean, this was very early on.
Chief of Naval Operations, yes.
I don't think any of the services had a Facebook page. Maybe the Marine Corps did.
Probably the Marines. They're always at the cutting edge of usually they're ahead. Usually.
And we had a Twitter account.
Yes. I remember.
It was at Navy News. It was sort of tongue-in-cheek stuff that he posted it was doing really well.
Yes, it was.
It wasn't necessarily official.
No,
but,
no.
So the earthquake happened in Haiti, and we were responding. The Navy had a large part of the response, and so a 24-hour command was set up in the Pentagon, and public affairs was supposed to be a watch person in this 24-hour command. So we were sending our first lieutenant from down there, and we said, "Hey, listen, we put together this Twitter list of all of the NGOs, all of the DoD entities, all of the government entities that are responding to the Haiti crisis. We put a list together for you to monitor and retweet that might help you on the watch floor." And so she said, "Okay, great." So she goes down there, and it's this big watch center, like watch center. And so the watch captains at one point said, "Hey, when is the, I think it was the Comfort, when's the USNS Comfort taking on their first patient?" And the operators guys, they were monitoring the operators, they were like, "Tomorrow morning, sir, is 7:07. And he's like, "Okay." And my friend, she's like, "Oh no, sir, they're taking their first patient right now." And so like everybody's in the back corner where the public affairs officers, and everybody's like, they're like, "Who are you? What? Who are you? How do you know this?" And she goes, "Oh, the Comfort, you just tweeted it out."
Wow, how
Social
interesting.
media was moving so quickly.
It was moving before the operational
updates. And so we were able to use that as an example of how critical it was that we're in this space.
Right, and getting those updates.
And we got the launch, and we got to move ahead with the stage, and
the rest is history. Wow, that's neat that you were there at that groundbreaking level. And so you're in the Navy, and you're at Shimpo, and you decide at some point, and I believe this is where you did it, you decide to get out and go into the reserves. Tell me a little bit about why you made that decision and how that went
down. So I was at my 10-year mark, and I had 2 children at that point, and I was pregnant with my third, and I probably looking at a career tour. I just remember there were 2 main reasons I think I was ready to hang up my active duty hat. One was that I didn't know that I would come home from a career tour and still be married, and my marriage was more important than anything else. And my husband wasn't the stay-at-home house type of husband who was gonna, hang out in Norfolk with my 3 children, 3 small children, while I did a career tour. I just didn't think that was gonna work for our family. And secondly, I was so frustrated with the bureaucracy of the DoD, and I just come through this period of social media innovation. It just felt like bureaucracy was holding us back.
Right.
I wanted to see more, and so I made the decision at that point to be active duty.
Yeah, and that's such a hard decision. It really is, but it's such a personal one for everyone that decides to do it. So you decide to leave active duty, and what is your first job post-military?
So it was interesting. On my way out, and this was 2011, the military was offering active duty free childcare for 6 months to stay reserve, because this was the moment when we were transferring a lot of the roles in Afghanistan and Iraq from active to reserve. And so they were really trying to hold on to active duty experience and move it into the reserve side. And so I wasn't going to go into the reserve at all. I kept thinking that's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. That's not for me. But I was pregnant, and I'm like, well, the 6 months will get me through the pregnancy, and then there's no obligation, so this is great. So I did the reserve thing to get through the pregnancy.
And you thought that's all you were going to do it for?
I thought, I'll get on my employer.
Oh, wow,
interesting. And I'll be done.
Yeah.
So I had no idea what I was doing. And so we moved from Washington D.C. to Austin, Texas, and I started working for a company called socialmedia.org at the time, and they were helping Fortune 500 companies, social media people in this community. And so it was pulling together all of the people who were the leads for social media at these Fortune 500 companies, so that they could learn from one another in the community. It was awesome. But Texas is way far away from Ohio.
Yes.
Which is where both my husband and my family are. And so, I don't know, about 4 months in, we're like, this is not where we need to be. We need to move to Ohio. And so it was a short-lived point in time.
Yeah, and then you moved to Ohio. When did you start your job with customer experience?
That was on the way, yeah. So
Okay.
it was a really fascinating thing. So a lot of stuff happened all at once. I had the third baby, and the third baby was born with cystic fibrosis. So that is a genetic disease that requires a lot of medical care, shortens life expectancy, and it's pretty crazy. And I was so lucky or blessed or whatever that I had done the reserve thing because now we had this really incredible health insurance to cover this disease.
Oh, wow.
And so I had already turned in my notice at that employer that we were going to leave, and my parents were there. We were trying to pack everything up. Our plan, I didn't even have a job lined up in Ohio. We were just going to pack everything in a U-Haul and move in with my parents and figure it out. And new baby and
Oh,
okay.
man.
And it was my employer there who had this association, and they said, "We're just looking for somebody. We don't care where they work from. We just need somebody to help us stand up this global association." And my boss that I recommended me, and I was like, "Okay, if you don't care that I'm in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, I'll start next week." And so I'm doing this job interview in a U-Haul on the way to Ohio.
Oh my
And they offered
gosh.
me the job in Arkansas, and I got to Ohio, and a week later I was starting. It was phenomenal. I mean, customer experience professionals were kind of the missing link in my book, right? So we were coming out of this emerging media, social media, 2011 period, and I heard all of this feedback on the Navy's Facebook page, on Twitter. Like, you have this dialogue with your community, with your fan base. You have a dialogue.
You do.
And I didn't see, like, we were getting so much feedback, and I couldn't see where you take that feedback and you do
And you
something with it.
incorporate it back into the
Yeah.
system, and then you make changes based on
And
the
it was
feedback.
so frustrating to me from the
Yeah.
DoD perspective. And then I was, as soon as I learned about customer experience, I was like, oh my gosh, the corporate world is doing this. Like, they are taking all of that data, all of the feedback that is coming in, and they're actually using it to better the experience for their customers.
Experiences. And give me an example of some of the things that these companies would use that customer feedback for.
I mean, some of the companies that were highlighted at the time, of course, Amazon was a big user experience company as an example. USAA at the time, was a really strong role model for how you empathize with your customer. So it's really based on understanding the customer's journey through their experience with your company and putting yourself in the customer's shoes rather than what you think as the company makes the most sense for the customer. Let's turn it around and look at it from the customer's perspective. And where is the customer having pain points in that journey with the company? And let's fix those.
Right.
I mean, it's little tiny things like an insurance company had a customer experience room where they would bring their employees in and they would have you talk to a service representative on the phone, but they would make the sound volume low because you're an elderly customer and your hearing isn't as good. And they'd have you try to walk through, as an employee, walk through what they're asking you to do, but with your hearing isn't that great, and you don't understand what they're saying. So, I mean, just understanding and having empathy. So I loved what the customer experience profession is about because it really mixes together empathy, business, with a mathematical element too, because you're looking at the statistics and so it was just a really awesome field.
And what's fascinating to me about this is that, I think you alluded to this when we were meeting the other day, if you don't mind me bringing up the reorg.
Yeah.
I mean, you alluded, we're having a restructuring process that's going on at our work. We work together at the moment, and you've been selected to start to lead that effort up. And so tell me a little bit about how you were able to come up with questions that you came up with when we sat down. I was like, how did you even know how to do this? And if an office needs to be more efficient, like what is it that you do to pull people to help them understand what are the priorities of what they work on, what should they be working on, what are they neglecting, how did you approach that?
So I use a lot of the base of my really I just keep going back to the journey, right? So the purpose behind your work, the take it through a journey and you put yourself in the other person's perspective. And like this goes for anything in life.
It really
More than
does.
business,
Way
than
more.
military, more.
Yes.
So if you're willing to look at things from the other side, what questions does that other side have? Like, how can you better understand the other person's frame of mind?
Mhm.
What do you need to know
Yeah.
in order to understand how they're approaching the problem?
Mhm.
Right? Those are the questions that you should ask, right? So anything in life. Like,
Yeah.
How can I better understand you and where you're coming from so that I can work with you successfully?
Where did you get that? Like, where did you learn how to be able to do that? Do you think?
I don't know. Well, actually, one of my favorite quotes in life is one that my dad always said. And it comes from a poem, and it's, I always say this is my favorite quote, but it's so called, a gift it is, what gift it is to see ourselves as creators. And I think just understanding the empathy in other people, like
Mhm.
I love community, as I know you do. Like connection and community, and part of connection and community is being willing to understand other people,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. People who are
Yeah.
very different from you, who might not agree with what you agree with, and seeing things under their lens, I think expands your horizons because then you get to learn about something in a different way, and it's fascinating because suddenly, like especially like I can think of bring up Reuben Green, like his experiences. He was one of my guests a couple weeks ago. He wrote the book Black Ops White Navy, and you know his journey as a black officer in the 80s is just was so different than what anything that I've experienced. And he brought up things like renaming the John C. Stennis, like things like that I would have never thought like that, or the issue with the beards and a lot of the black men they struggle with that because of skin conditions. And if I didn't have those conversations and I didn't get to see things through other people's eyes, I'd never know that those were concerns and things that we could hopefully try to make better. And so it's so important to be able to do that. How do you think faith has played a role in this journey?
Oh man, I like having grounded. I guess we can move on to the most so I think that um, I am a huge believer in God, and I center myself on love. I feel like if I'm not coming to a place from love as divine intentions, then I'm not doing my life correctly. And if you have a mission statement for your life, I guess that would be my mission statement. Like,
That's a beautiful mission statement.
From that
Yeah.
point, then something is off. And I think I don't know that I would be able to keep my sense of joy in life without my faith. And so I think life is so challenging.
It is.
There are
It's
so
such a struggle
there's so
for
many
everyone.
places where I could have just broken down.
Yeah.
And I think it's only through my faith that I can break down. And I continue to find so much joy in my life, even during the hard periods. I guess.
And so, what would you say really was your toughest struggle while serving?
Hands down, it was when I got called to Afghanistan. So here I am sitting as a comfortable reservist, which is not understand that because the reserve life is much more challenging than I thought. It came with more flexibility than I thought, and it came with incredible opportunities. But trying to balance your family life, the needs and of you as a reservist, and a full-time job in the civilian world is really hard to do. And I know at least that while I was didn't appreciate it. Didn't understand that reservists need to work for me, have this entirely other different career, and very talented, skilled people
They are.
with such diverse experience that we can so learn from if we're willing to. And I think that's mine. So I'm a reservist, and I get called to go for my mobilization to Afghanistan. And at this point, I had 4 children, my youngest 2, and I was working for the Customer Experience Professionals Association, and life was going well. And I'm like, all right, well, this is great. I'm just
do you mean?
I came home thinking I was coming home like an active duty deployment, where you come home as your shirts come together, everyone's here, the band is playing, you go out to your favorite restaurant, you spend like the next couple of weeks on leave enjoying life, and then you get back to it.
Right.
But as a reservist, that's not the experience.
No, it's not.
As a reservist, you come back by yourself. You come back to community and a family who's been straight without you for the last 9 months, an employer who's done well without you now for the last 9 months, and you're just trying to figure out how you fit back in and what's changed since you've been gone. And it is so hard. You know, I barely had my marriage was on the rock. Like my children, I describe it to people like they had a hole in them where I was supposed to have been over the last year, and I wasn't there, and they had this hole, and they were from the minute I walked in the door, they were trying to fill the hole back up. But it was like I couldn't even process that as I'm going through this. And my employer had changed my position, and so I was hurt from that, and it was just a really fun.
And yeah, that's something that we don't really talk about a lot in the military, is the fact that when you do deploy as a reservist, you aren't with the entire team. And so a lot of times you're going to go back home to a community that really might not understand at all what you went through, and have the resources in place to handle something like that. And it's just truly, truly hard. And I think that's what inspired you, if I remember correctly, why you decided to start the podcast, because you wanted to show people that journey of what it's like to be a military reservist, correct?
Yeah, it was part of my therapy. Like you don't have the people who with there with you when you come back home, and so you don't have those people who you've been talking about. Oh, I'm going to go and try this great meal. You're not there. Nobody else is there for that great meal with you. Right? So you feel very alone. And it was also overwhelming too. I remember one of the things I would always do is go and stay as part of my commitment to my team. And so that year, a week or two before Veterans Day, and my daughter went to the middle school. I was a wreck. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I went and I spoke, and there was an assembly at the end of the day, and I was just couldn't be in that crowd. Like I had just gotten back to Afghanistan. It was too tight. There was too many people. I was too overwhelmed. I came home. I remember going to my closet crying for an hour. I mean, it was such a hard period. And so, coming out of that year, I felt like I hadn't made this commitment to myself and to other reservists and to the active duty to open up this dialogue more. We needed to know that this was the experience, and I wanted active duty service members to understand the experience of reserve, because I knew that, at least for me on active duty, I had no clue. And I could have done such a better job working with my reservists and utilizing their skill set.
I know.
And so, I wanted to have this podcast out there that would demonstrate that. And then what I found as I started telling reservist stories on the podcast is that so many people had these same incredibly hard transitions, and they felt like they were on their own. Like, they didn't realize that
there were other people that are going through it. Oh my God.
It was something all
yes.
shared. I mean, so
this is why sharing struggle is so important.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, people tell me all the time, like, you're so open and you're so vulnerable. I and they relate to what I'm saying. And then I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one who doesn't have any friends on a trip or whatever, whatever the issue is. Or I'm not the only one that's dealt with bullying or whatever. Like you said, you weren't the only one that had a tough transition from coming home from war and into a community that's not a military community that really understands what you've gone through. And it's just amazing that you were able to capture those stories. And you were the one who inspired me to start this show, because I called you like a year before I even started Stories of Service.
And I told her, I'm like, it's not that
Ah!
Just do it.
Do it. It
It
still
takes a
took
lot
me
of
like
time.
a year.
It does take a lot of time.
It's a labor of love, and it's important to have these conversations and for people to know that they're not the only ones who struggle with a particular bad boss, abusive relationship. Just all of us just went through the saga that Tony ever heard, but at the core of that is domestic violence. There's a lot of people who struggle with that as well. And I mean, if we don't tell these stories and get these out, I just feel like people are going to feel isolated and they're going to feel alone, and then they're going to not seek help. And if they allow that to happen, they'll further spiral into suicide. I really believe that, and so and I think that that's why it's so important to have these conversations and to share our struggles and share our strengths. And so, other than the podcast, what do you think helped pull you through that time?
Oh man, I said a lot of prayers. There was a lot of praying. I did counseling. My husband and I did counseling together. Tomorrow we actually are celebrating our anniversary, which is
Congratulations.
a miracle
Yes.
in my book. So I take it.
Yeah.
And I think again, I just remember at the time I had to keep telling myself that my book was not peaceful. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. And I just had to hand it over because there was no way I could process it. And so many of my friends offered help, and you have to be willing to accept the help. Like I had to be willing to open up to my friend and, like you said, be vulnerable. Because if I wasn't willing to accept their love and compassion, then I would have gotten more. I would have. So yeah, it was a be willing to take the life change, right? So we made huge changes. Our family made huge changes out of that period of time. We sold our house in Ohio. We moved to Florida. It was just really.
And you got another job in healthcare, and you get, totally different field.
Totally different field. It was very crazy and exciting, and it was like
during COVID.
I didn't even. I got the job before COVID started. I didn't even
Right.
the pandemic happened a month into my job, and I remember thinking like, what is going on? That I keep entering these battlefields.
Yeah, I remember you shared on the last show. So we'll backtrack. What did you do at that hospital? Communications, and it was a small Florida hospital, right?
Yeah.
And I love the story you told on the last show about how during COVID you stopped being a communicator. Tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, it was incredible. So I started working, and I wanted to work in healthcare as part of customer experience. Healthcare was one of the fields that was really getting into they call it patient experience, and I spent so much time on the patient side of things with my son, who has hospitalized multiple times. So healthcare was really interesting to me. And so I remember my first day on the job, and the very first day on the job, they do two things in a hospital. I don't know if it's hospitals, but in this case, they test you for your immunization to see what vaccine you need. And I was super immune because of the military makes you super immune to everything. And then they fit you for an N95 mask. And when they do that, like the real N95 mask, you put it on, and they put this like hood, a plastic hood over top of you, and they spray this stuff, and you have to see if you can smell it because there can be no air that gets in. Like it has to be perfectly fitted. I remember going through this process, and I was joking with the nurse, and I was like, "Am I ever gonna need this?" She's like, "Oh no, totally not. Like unless there's some crazy outbreak of something, and you're having to talk to the media, you'll probably never need this." And then a month later, they're issuing these. Wow. And
It's just
it
crazy.
was like there was so much that was asked of the healthcare professionals. I mean, it's still to this day. I'm just in awe of the amount of themselves. But we were to the point where everyone in the hospital was taking on everything. I would rush out, fully check out, like COVID patients from the ER up to their room. I would go into the COVID patient's room. But at least one of them, which was a friend of mine, and hold her hand. We had to, take things in from under the hold it all. I mean, it was just really hard to watch. But to see what the healthcare with nurses and doctors and everyone across the themselves. I mean, and they didn't have a place. Like, I remember thinking in Afghanistan, if you were here, they give you 2 weeks off to go anywhere in the world that you want to go for peacetime. That wasn't happening. Yeah, I just
Crazy.
remember thinking, this is not sustainable.
No. And it's amazing that you got to have that experience. It's just another one of the things that has happened. I feel like you've just had such an interesting life journey. Like you've just gone to so many different places. You've done healthcare, you've done business, and customer experience type stuff. You've gone to a war zone. You've served in the Navy. You've raised children. You have a special needs child. I mean, it's just there's so many different layers to your story, Leslie. That's what I find fascinating. And it's still not ending. Like now you're here in Germany. So what happened from the healthcare world to getting this job and being here?
No, it's not random.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's funny how everything leads along, right? So had we not been willing to pick up in Ohio, I'm not sure that Germany would like it.
Because you would have the confidence to know that now you can
Right?
do
So you
this. You
take,
can
like,
do this
the
move.
steps. And so yeah, so this job popped up in New Park from a friend of mine, and I remember saying to Jason, like, "Hey, this is cool because I'm in Germany and this looks neat." And I thought he'd say, "No way!" Like,
Right.
here we were at a totally different place in our relationship, and he was in a different place. And he said, "Oh yeah, you should apply." And I was like, "All right." So I applied, and next thing I know, like we're moving our family of 6 to Germany, and that was insane. And so it's great. We've been here for a year and just a little over a year, and it's seen so much.
And you've done so much traveling too.
Yeah.
Like you don't just you do your reserve duty. You work full time in our office in the plants department, and then you do all this traveling all across Europe as well with your family.
Well, we made a deal. So there's 6 of us, right?
I see. You got 6 of them.
And we bought
You
6
don't buy drugs.
3 out of the 6 right now.
Okay. I didn't know that. All right. So what are the first 3 that you went to?
So the very first one was Paris. So my son, who is 10 now, his grade was Paris. But this whole thing is really it's interesting because we never could have been overseas for the Navy because of we couldn't have been overseas as a guest because of so the only way we could have pulled this off is the way that we did.
It's interesting.
And so it was fascinating. I mean, it was a huge step to, and he was healthy enough that he felt was impressive. So Paris was his. That was our first trip. My youngest, my 7-year-old daughter, wanted to go to the castle, his castle office, which is here in Germany, Schloss Liechtenstein. And we took me 6 months to figure out how to say that. And so we did that trip and combined it with Garmisch.
Beautiful place.
And then my 12-year-old wanted to go to Venice. So we did this
now I get it. Oh my God, did she just go on all these traveling, doing all this amazing stuff? And now I know that was why. Because you were going all around. Now you got 3 more trips coming up.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I think the best way that I want to close out the show, because we're kind of coming towards the top of the hour, I really want to know, like, what are the top 3 things that you feel served you the best in life? 3 life lessons that you felt when you were struggling or you had a challenge. You could kind of go back to maybe these 3 things. It doesn't have to be maybe the top of your head. Just 3 things that you think you could kind of come back to and it would help you through a particular problem or crisis.
Sure. I think the first one is definitely faith, right? So my faith in God, my faith that He carries me through things, right? And that faith it helps me to not find fear, but instead take it. So many times in my life, the risk solely because of the strength of my faith. The risk duty, with no other job, and then just being willing to have the faith that you know that you'll be okay, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that's probably been one of the things that's helped me have this
Yeah.
describe, right?
Right.
Just being willing to say that and to strike out. I think that my family is my anchor. So if it's got to be good for my family, right? And that has definitely defined my career because I need a career for my family first.
Mhm.
And I need to be willing to say no to something that is going to harm my family. And so my Afghanistan deployment, by that definition, I probably would have been Afghanistan, but it was pivotal that I stayed in the reserves to provide the medical care. And so that was solely so that I could maintain my son's welfare. So I think family being an anchor has been a huge thing for me. So that's two. I don't know if there's a third. A big one.
No, that's good enough.
I don't know. I like hope and optimism. I like
Sure.
happiness.
Right. All those good things, but being anchored in faith and family
Yeah.
is I think
Yeah.
very important, and I think carries a lot of us through those tough times.
Yeah, I think the third one is the community. I mean, I love people.
You do.
I love getting to know people, and maybe this is part of the empathy piece as well. I love trying to understand people, and I love communities. Anything that I can do that is part of community is something that I'm so passionate about. And so, I'm constantly trying to center myself in community and people.
Right. And that's really what, being acts of service and the stories of service is really all about, is that I want to create a community of people who help one another, share their stories, share their struggles in so many different ways. So is there anything else that I should have asked you about, or anything else you want to say to our audience?
Oh my gosh, we covered a lot. We covered a lot. Thank you all for tuning in. I mean, I just always an honor. Grace is doing an amazing job of bringing to others, but we wouldn't otherwise hear. And it's such a powerful thing that you're willing to devote time to. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, with that, I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your Saturday evening. This is my last podcast before leaving Germany. So what a wonderful way to close out my time here with the person that I initially interviewed when I was here. And if you are going away on Thursday, that'll be nice. And so I don't know when I'm going to get back into it. I've blurred for a second there, so sorry about that as the camera decides to maybe focus on us or not. That's okay. But the point being is I don't know when I'll get to do one of these again for you guys, because I'm going to be spending a little bit of time with my husband and enjoying Norfolk, enjoying some much needed time off, spending some time with him around the area. But enjoy the rest of your evening, guys. Have a wonderful evening. And I don't think we'll go on focus yet. So there we go. There we are. All right, guys. Have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And I will, when my mouse starts to work, I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.